does bug at me. It constantly bugs at me, the fact that I haven't got that win over him. And in my head, the only way to get over that is to go and do the one thing that he hasn't been able to do. He's had, one, two, maybe 3 chances at Ishii, whatever it's been. I think it's just the 2. And he hasn't been able to do it. So what a way, the same night that Luke could possibly win the heavyweight championship in what would be the greatest moment of his career. Just imagine if at the back of his head it was, but JJ beat Ishii.
Yeah. Well, welcome back to Grapple Theory. Thanks so much for joining us once again. And this week we are joined by someone who's having just an incredible year in wrestling. And we're going to hear all about it. It's leading up to a huge match that he's having at the Copper Box, which may already give away who it is, but hopefully not, because I'm about to introduce him. It's JJ Gale. JJ, welcome to the Grapple Theory podcast. It's great to have you here. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing real good, thanks. Appreciate you having me on the show. It's going to be fun to chat some wrestling.
Absolutely. No, it's great to have you here. It's great to have you here. And we always start, and I'm looking forward to this answer first off, because we always start by just asking our guests how life has been recently. So let's say like the last, we're 7 months into the year now. So the last 6 months, the last 12 months since last year, how has JJ Gale been? How have things been going?
Yeah, real good, man. Yeah, I'm enjoying the ride of pro wrestling that it takes you on. I've been doing this a while now, and just kind of putting in those ground steps, putting in that, tile after tile to create the end piece. And we're far from that end piece, but I feel like after a lot of years of hard work and grafting and making mistakes and learning and developing and having big opportunities to grow, that finally things are starting to go my way, get a little bit of notoriety, have some big matches, keep improving my work. And there's been some real exciting moments over the last year, really. So it's going good in the life of JJ Gale, yeah.
For sure. I was going to ask about that because I think like the thing that's most intriguing is, like you say, you have been in wrestling for a while, and it seems like your career has sort of had like these peaks and troughs where sort of like you go for a bit of a push and then you sort of back down for a bit and then back up again. But the last 12 months especially, I feel like it's been a real consistent high of growth and growth and growth. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. For me, it kind of all kicked off at the Revolution Rumble last March. That kind of felt like it was my, not necessarily my coming out party, but almost it felt like it was the start of this slow build that we've been on. Like I said, before that, years to get to that point where maybe someone has the trust in you to say, okay, we're going to do something, we're going to use you now, we're going to build this story, we're going to give you these big moments and matches, and then it's on you to deliver. But yeah, that Revolution Rumble last March 2023, obviously eliminating Zack Sabre Jr., Francesco Akira, Leon Slater, 3 huge names in the wrestling world. And to a lot of people, I think at that point, maybe they didn't know who I was. The RevPro regulars were aware of me and seen my journey, but I think to the wider audience, maybe, who is this guy? And it's just been on me now to prove them who I am and what I'm about, and just welcome them along for the ride.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is those moments, isn't it, where like, again, you have that moment in the Revolution Rumble, and again, it's not for, because like you say, the RevPro diehards who are there week in, week out, month in, month out will know you because you're on RevPro so much. But that wider audience, like you say, who maybe isn't as familiar with you, when you're eliminating guys like ZSJ, like Leon Slater, like they sit up at that point and they're like, oh, like this guy's got something. Like if this is the moments he's having, if this is the push he's getting, that's the moment those other people sit up and take notice.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. And then, like I say, I think it's on you as a performer then to, something's been highlighted to the fans to be like, here's someone to take notice of, and then it's up to you to bring them on board and remind them why they do need to get behind you and why they should pay attention. And at the end of the day, to entertain them, that's what we're here to do. And I take great pleasure in entertaining the fans and building that connection with them. I think that's such an important part of my journey. So, and I feel like that's just growing week in, week out.
Yeah, that moment again, like going back to the Rumble specifically, like what are those moments like when Andy's like, this is what we're doing, this is the plan, this is what you're going to do in this match, and it's big stuff. Like how does that feel in those moments in terms of like in your mind being like, this is a big opportunity for me because it can propel me to this.
It's exactly that. You just got to acknowledge that, and obviously, especially those first few opportunities, and every time you get an opportunity that's going to be a challenge that, like you say, it's going to propel you if it goes well. There's always going to be that slight nervous energy there that's like, this is important, you want to deliver, you want to prove that you deserve the opportunity you've been given. But I just like to remind myself I got in this business and this profession for a reason. I believe that I can make something of it, and I can go somewhere and I've got something to give to the business. And I just remind myself of that and remind myself that I love this, and this is what I've literally been dreaming of since I was a kid, to have opportunities like this. So then it just becomes, right, let's go to work and put in the effort to make this as good as it possibly can be.
Yeah, and I want to delve into that further in terms of, like, again, like you say, like, you've been on RevPro a long time, especially you've been in wrestling a long time, you've been on RevPro a long time. And again, it's something we've spoken about with other wrestlers, where it seems like these opportunities can sort of not necessarily come out of nowhere, but like it can take a little while to build to them. Like when you've been on RevPro so long, as a regular for so long as well, as like a solid, reliable mainstay who you know Andy can call on you to have a cracking match when you come in. But like again, it felt like this was like your proper big push at RevPro. So after a while, like after doing it for like say like 3-4 years, obviously COVID notwithstanding, but like after doing it for that long, so consistently at one promotion, and sort of maybe in your mind feeling like you haven't had that big moment yet, do you start to like worry, like, is it going to happen?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously I was in RevPro for a few years before maybe a push happened or a big story happened or a big match happened or a big moment. But I'm glad for that, because my first year or two in RevPro, I wasn't ready for those positions. Would I have said, I'm not ready? No, I would have said, yeah, let's do it. And I probably would have shit the bed and maybe not done as well as I could have done. And don't get me wrong, in a few years' time, I maybe look back at some of these matches and moments I've had and be like, God, I do so many things different now, and I wish I'd knew this then. But that's wrestling, and that's the journey that we're on. But yeah, obviously there's that little voice in the back of your head being like, when's my moment going to be? You know, maybe someone's made a massive name for himself in the indies, they get brought in and all of a sudden they fast track ahead of you. But I try and just focus on myself, you know, and just, am I getting better? What am I doing to get into a better position tomorrow than I'm in today in all aspects of the game, whether that's how you look, whether that's how you wrestle, whether that's your character and your storytelling, whether that's, you know, your ring psychology. Just if you're constantly trying to evolve and get better and learn, and each match try and pick up something new or try and add something to it, then of course you're eventually going to get there. And you just need to be honest and in tune with yourself. And I think, you know, it's going to come. So yeah, sure, there's always that slight doubt like anyone, but I think I always knew that the chance was coming, and when it did come, and when these opportunities keep coming, I just feel more and more prepared and ready. And I think the more times you get given an opportunity and you do well and you smash it out of the park, it just reinforces that belief that you belong to be here and you can deliver.
For sure. Yeah, I love that. And again, like, it's the sort of thing where obviously you had the moment with the Rumble, and then moving on from that, was there like, I want to say like a match or a moment that you had where you can feel that build happening, where you can feel like sort of that crowd getting behind you that little bit more, where like you can feel like you're getting noticed that little bit more, those little sparks are happening, do you know what I mean, like on that way up? Was there like a moment in that for you where you could sort of like sense it yourself, or is it sort of like just enjoy the ride and where it's taking you?
No, there are those moments. I mean, first of all, it was the big opportunities. It was eliminating Zack and building that feud, but I felt like the whole time I was having to prove myself. This is Zack Sabre Jr. The world knows who this is. This is one of the best professional wrestlers in the world. And on the other side, you've got JJ Gale, and why are people going to care about this? Because who am I to them? So that was a chance for me during that story to kind of show who I am. And I think that's when the pressure's there mostly, you know, when you are a relative unknown and you've got to try and prove why people should care about you having this match and why people shouldn't throw it back and be like, why are we getting this? We could have Zack versus this person, why this guy, right? So I think that's where the pressure is. But I feel like the moment that, I mean, Copper Box last year against Vegeta was a real special moment. Wrestling in front of a crowd like that was insane. But I don't feel like I made the most of that opportunity in terms of bringing people in and really making the most of how I should have navigated that situation. But I think the moment where I felt like I've got them now, I think they're on board with me, would probably in February this year, the high stakes match with Luke Jacobs, to be honest. I think that was the first chance. I had the Zack match in December, which went well. We opened up the card, a solid opener. But I think this was the first time I was given an opportunity to go out there and really deliver, show that I can have a great match that is going to get the world talking, get the wrestling world talking. And I think we delivered on that, me and Luke. You know, really exciting match, got a lot of sort of good reviews, which I'm happy with. Obviously, there's a million things I'll pick apart in it, but that's just every pro wrestler with every match. But to look around afterwards and see a standing ovation from the 2,000 or however many were there was kind of just that little bit of validation that, okay, you can deliver when these opportunities are there, and these people have been on this ride, because if no one cared about me and we had that match and Luke destroyed me, it'd be like, great, Luke won. But I think they were invested emotionally in both of us and the journey and the story we told. And that was why when it all comes to an end, they stood up just to say thank you for entertaining us. And that's a nice feeling as a performer. To sort of get that nice reaction. So that was a moment I felt like, okay, we're on to something. And even the next show, the next week or whenever it was, 2 weeks later, when I came out of the 229, it was the first appearance since that match. And I came out and the pop was bigger than it ever had been before. And I was like, cool, okay, now we're rocking and rolling. We just got to keep doing this and we'll get to those levels that some of the very top talent in this country's at, which is where I'm aiming for.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that match so much because I had that down to talk to you about and I was hoping you'd mention it so I could lead into it just real casual like. But like that moment with Luke seemed like not just like a milestone for you, but for him as well, because obviously like I feel like Luke's big breakout, I guess, came again at Copper Box last year against Ishii, who's your opponent this year. But like that was like, I think for me that was like match of the year. That was incredible. I know I spoke to so many other people that were the same, and that was the one where it felt like he'd reached that global stage where you know that global audience is going to sit up and take notice because he had such a great match with Ishii, but also the high stakes match that you guys had was like almost like that in a different way in terms of like these are the two RevPro regulars. These are two guys that you know you're going to see week in, week out, really going at it in this match that meant so much and also again delivered so much. Like you said, it felt like that sort of big match in another way because you guys are such concrete members of that roster, and the fact that you were going at it like that meant that like it just felt like a big moment for both of you.
Yeah, I think it was. Say Luke had established himself at that point. That Ishii match made him really. It was a standout moment for him. But then it's sure you can get in there with one of the best wrestlers in the world and deliver, but like, can you do that with guys that you're wrestling week in, week out? Which is a place that I'm at. Sure, I mean, me and Luke had a couple of absolute bangers, but I want to be able to steal the show with anyone and everyone I'm on with. I think that's the next step. But yeah, sure, I'm sure it was a big moment for him. I think us two have good chemistry. I think there's a hell of a story there between us two. There's a lot of vitriol. Whenever we get in the ring, I think the people know now that it's going to be a fight. I mean, we wrestled 2 weeks ago at the 229, and it was the same again. We just leathered the shit out of each other, and I want to beat him. And I haven't beaten him yet, and I'm not afraid to say that, which is why I've thrown out this challenge to Tomohiro Ishii, because sure, I can't beat Luke right now. He's got to go on and challenge Michael Oku for the heavyweight title, and fair enough. If I was in that position, I'd be doing the same thing, but it does bug at me. It constantly bugs at me, the fact that I haven't got that win over him. And in my head, the only way to get over that is to go and do the one thing that he hasn't been able to do. He's had, 1, 2, maybe 3 chances at Ishii, whatever it's been. I think it's just the 2, and he hasn't been able to do it. So what a way, the same night that Luke could possibly win the heavyweight championship in what would be the greatest moment of his career. Just imagine if at the back of his head it was, but JJ beat Ishii.
Yeah.
And I'm just constantly there. And I'll get my chance again, and one day I will beat Luke Jacobs, and it's going to mean a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, isn't it? I was going to say, you guys have had this really nice sort of like slow burn feud going here where like, again, it's not like a feud, but you have these like little moments, these little bits where like you can sense the animosity there, and it's beautiful, it's brilliant. And like you say, it's waiting for that moment for yourself, isn't it, to finally get that one. And like you said, we'll talk about your match with Ishii, but again, just think about it. You beat Ishii, Luke beats Oku, and then like, what if the match you beat Luke is all of a sudden the title match? Then, I mean, because surely that's got to happen in that case, right?
I mean, look, fantasy book all you like, but to me it's not a fantasy. I'm hell-bent on going out there, having a show-stealing performance against Ishii, beating Ishii, and then in my eyes, I know Luke, all right? I know him pretty well. I've been in locker rooms with him, and I know that's going to eat at him. Like I say, that's the greatest moment, but just having that in the back of his head, he's going to know that. And I know Luke's not one to just, he's going to say how he feels. So I'm sure he'd be up for a fight. He knows we're going to have a scrap. And he'll just want to prove that, yeah, fine, you beat Ishii, but I'm still the man over you. And if that championship match presents itself, you best believe, coming off the momentum of a win like that, I'll be ready for it. Yeah.
And I mean, if Oku retains and the championship match you get down the line is against him, I'm sure you wouldn't sniff at that either.
Well, exactly. And this is something I've only wrestled Mike once. And that was in late 2022 at Portsmouth Guildhall for RevPro. Great match, one of my favourite matches at the time. But I mean, we're looking at almost 2 years ago that was, and like you say, the the development and the changes in both of us in the last 2 years. Obviously, I'm at where I am, and Mike's gone from here to here. He's a global superstar now. He's, in my opinion, probably the best unsigned, wrestler in the world today. So, yeah, for sure, this is exciting stuff. But step one, go to Copperbox and beat Ishii, and that's no easy challenge. I'm fully aware of that.
Yeah. We're gonna talk a little bit more about that match in my next question. I've just got one more before, because you're going to be the first in what I've decided is going to be a new series that I'm rolling out for anyone RevPro based that we chat to here on the podcast. In the fact that obviously Oku's been doing fantastically, and for the last year and a half, he's had Amira brilliantly in his corner. And Amira's a menace, we all know it. She's brilliant, she's so good. You've got to keep your eye on her though. So my question to you is, if you're facing Oku and Amira's there in the corner, who do you want in your corner, making sure she doesn't get in the way? You can pick, let's say you can pick anyone indie. You can't pick anyone say signed. Anyone indie. Who do you want in your corner that's going to be the perfect foil for Amira?
Okay, I mean, this might be a boring answer, but you say Amira's a menace. There's only one person in British wrestling who's more of a menace, and he is a regular at RevPro. You may know him, you may not. Harry Milligan.
Yes.
Little Harry Milligan in my corner. I whatever Amira does, I'd back Harry Milligan to even up the scores, And you might not take it seriously, but trust me, I know the boy well, and that's my choice.
I'll tell you what, I think that's something we need to see now.
There we go.
I like that answer.
You know what to do.
Yeah, I can see it. I like that. I like it a lot. I'm going to roll that out as a new feature. We'll see what other people say. We'll see who the perfect foil for her is down the line. But again, like we talk about, Copperbox this year, all in weekend, RevPro, JJ Gale versus Tomohiro Ishii. I mean, again, you said it yourself. You want that match because you want to do the thing that Luke Jacobs hasn't done and beat Tomohiro Ishii. When you want that match, when Andy Quildan is yeah, you can have that match. That, how much belief, how much faith does that put in you? How much what's the word I'm looking for? How much backing does that mean in your mind that you're oh shit, I've got this backing from Andy Quildan, more so than I've had in the past in terms of the fact he's willing to give me this match against Tomohiro Ishii, who for decades has been one of the best wrestlers in the world.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great vote of confidence, but it's also that pressure because that opportunity's been given to you, and you just need to make sure that the work goes into that night to make sure that you pull off what people expect. Tomohiro Ishii doesn't have bad matches, so that's not an option, and it's going to be a fight and it's going to be a war. But yeah, it's really it's flattering to know that I'm trusted with that opportunity, and for me it's just now focus on going out and delivering. It's great to be at the Copperbox last year. The match with Vegeta was a really proud moment. To walk out to an arena like that was a real sort of moment of, this is what I got into wrestling to do at nights like this. But this is a whole nother ball game. This isn't a 8-minute middle of the card sort of fun match. This is top tier. This is one of the marquee matches. This is one of the biggest wrestlers in the world, and this is my chance to prove that I can hang with someone like that. And I intend on proving that to the world. Yeah,
and I love that. And that's the thing, isn't it? Like you say, I know, obviously, again, personally, I thought your match with Vegeta was great, but you said yourself, you look back on it and there's things you would have improved, there's things you would have done different. And that's something that's, again, not necessarily a bad thing going into a match like this, because you can look back, because you can see, sort of reflect on how you felt in that moment, whether it was the moment had a part to play in it as well in terms of mentally, and you can learn from that, and that's the perfect sort of experience, really, isn't it, where you can learn from something and take it into the next big thing.
Yeah, I think that's pro wrestling. It's a constant evolution of learning and developing and growing and making mistakes and learning from other people in this industry to better yourself. And no one ever stops learning. It's the old cliche you always hear, but you never stop learning. You can never have the perfect match. And I've always said, I think that's one of the things that's most addictive about pro wrestling.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to talk about a few bits that aren't necessarily RevPro related. But first, before that, we've got our first little feature here for the show. And we have spoken a lot about RevPro, so this is going to be sort of the final push of RevPro, because this feature is called Dishing the Dirt. And I'm going to have you dish some dirt on your RevPro locker room mates. Because again, you've been in the locker room long enough, you know the people well enough. So I'm going to list out some questions for you, and I want you to let me know which member of the RevPro locker room comes to mind for each one.
Okay.
So the first one is, who's always running late?
Andy Gordon will tell you JJ Gale. That would be his answer. My answer would be Connor Mills.
Yeah.
But yeah, you ask Andy Quilden that, he'll be given the heat.
We did have Andy on. I can't remember who he said, but I'm going to rewind that. I'm going to go rewatch that after we finish here and see if he said you. I'll let you know.
Connor Mills, Ricky Knight Jr., or if you ask Andy Quilden, JJ Gale.
The next one is who has the worst music taste?
Ooh.
We can say this can be outside of RevPro as well. Like if you carpool to like shows and stuff, like someone puts some tunes on, you're like, what is this?
So I'm going to out someone that I started out in this business with. He's a good friend of mine, former contender with me when we started out, Sean Action, Double Action Jackson. Loves a bit of Taylor Swift, which is not a bit of me.
Really?
It's popular, I get it, but he was big Taylor Swift mark, and I don't know, if I'm on my way for a big match, I'm trying to get myself ready, excited, you know, Taylor's not what's getting me.
She's a bit down the list, way down the list. Yeah, no, I get that. Well, we're going to find out more about your music taste in our second feature, but that's coming a bit later, so we'll save the good stuff for then. But the next one is who takes the longest to get ready? It can be either like for their match or say like after the show when you're all leaving and you're waiting for someone and they're taking ages.
That's a good one. I mean, a cheat answer's like any of the girls that wrestle away because they've got a whole face of makeup they have to do, whereas I find most of the guys will get a gear on, warm up a little bit, a few push-ups, stretch out, and a bit of water over the head, and out we go. But I guess any of the women in the locker room, you know, they've got to put the whole face on and everything.
Take a bit longer.
It's a bit of a cheat answer. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
No, that's fair. That's fair. The next one is the next one's my favourite on the list because it's who in the locker room, and can be male or female. Under zero circumstances, would you let a family member date?
Ooh. That's a juicy question.
Yeah, I get.
I mean, a cheat answer would be any of them because I don't want to bring my family into wrestling. I'm not a wrestling star.
I think someone said that. I think we had LA Taylor on recently. She was like, no one should date a wrestler. Like, what are you doing?
Exactly. So I like to try and keep personal life and wrestling and professional life separately. But yeah, no, I wouldn't be willingly letting any of my family members
date anyone,
find their way into this business. And yeah.
Is there one? If I pushed you, if there was one above all, like say like one of your family walks in arm in arm with like a member of the locker room, and you're like, no, that's not happening. Like, get real protective about it.
Do you know what? I can't think off my head. There's no one that right now I'm thinking, nah.
No one's worse than anyone else. Everyone's just bad. You just shouldn't date a wrestler.
Stay away from wrestlers.
Yeah. I think it's smart advice. The next one is we're talking outside the locker room. Who has the worst dress sense?
So a lot of my good friends from the Portsmouth area would probably say me, but I dispute that heavily. Worst dress sense? I'm not sure about Ricky Knight Jr.'s skin-tight jeans.
Yeah.
That's not my vibe, but hey, each to their own.
Does he put them off, though? Is it just sort of thing you wouldn't wear, or is it like...
I think you're right. He pulls the look off, but I'm a baggy trouser kind of guy.
That's fair. I'm the same. So, well, the next one is actually sort of almost along those lines, but it's the nicer side of that question, because it's in the ring, you've forgotten your gear for a show, and you can borrow anyone's gear. It's one size fits all. You've got to go to someone and borrow their gear. Whose gear do you look at and you're like, I could definitely pull that off?
That's a good question. I tell you what, Leon's got some fresh gear. Leon Slater, obviously, he's just debuted a new set actually in the last few weeks. And it's nice, it's different, it's out of the box. Slightly different look to most guys have got, and it's always fresh and clean. So we'll go with Leon.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. I've got to ask about this because I ask a lot of people about this now just because it blows my mind so much. So we had Michael on last year before the Copper Box show, and I asked him the same question, and he said Leon, except his worry was that like Leon's gear is actually like way heavier than it looks, and he wouldn't be able to like do his moves in it. And then I asked Leon it when we had him on, and he was like, yeah, my gear's really heavy. And I was like, it doesn't look heavy. Like, I don't understand how he can do the stuff he does if his gear's that heavy. Would that be a concern in picking Leon's gear?
I mean, I've never touched it, felt it, or worn it, so I wouldn't have known that. But now you say that, maybe so. But I think it's one of those things you adjust to whatever you wrestle in. I never used to wrestle in trunks until I did the contender stuff, and I put them on and felt naked and was like, how am I going to go out wrestling this? And now I can't imagine wrestling anything else. But yeah, I've always thought that. I used to look back at the wrestlers who would wear like jeans and stuff back in the day, and you'd be like, how how are you doing there? Like even like someone like Orange Cassidy these days, you know, some of the stuff he does, and you're like, you're in jeans.
Yeah.
They're like elasticated. So yeah, I'll stick with the trunks. I've got full mobility in there.
That's smart. Yeah, I look at the jeans stuff and I'm like, that just must be so uncomfortable. Like,
Yeah.
it's got to like just be like rubbing against your legs and stuff. Like, it can't be fun. The next one is the next one's another nice one actually. It's who would throw the best party in the locker room? Who would throw the party that JJ Gale needs to be at?
I'd have to give that to Connor Mills.
Yeah.
I think. Or Trent Seven maybe. You know?
Yeah.
Not that I partied with Trent, but you know, I reckon you can put on a party. But
Yeah.
I'll go Mills. Though.
What sort of party? You have partied with him?
Well, I think he'd do the job. I think he'd do the job. Yeah, we've had some fun nights. So.
That's all right then. Yeah, I was going to say, like, I was just going to ask, like, what kind of party you reckon Connor's throwing?
Hey, I'm sure anything's on the table. Yeah, a good party, we'll say.
Nothing off limits. Nice. And the next one I think is the most important question on the list. It's the final one. It's who would you choose to be your partner in the zombie apocalypse?
Oh, in the zombie apocalypse. Okay.
It's crucial, I think, the part of this is like what you need them for. Do you know what I mean? Like, are you going to use them, like throw them to the wolves, or do you want someone who's actually helping you out?
Do you know, I'll choose Ricky Knight Jr.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, we'll fire him up with something, we'll get him pissed off about something, and he'll just go to town.
Nice.
Them all and
tight jeans and all. Tight jeans and all.
Yeah,
just be
tight jeans and all. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'll back that.
Yeah, smart. That's smart. That's a good choice, actually. I think you and Ricky would make a pretty lethal combo in the zombie apocalypse. I'm not going to lie.
I would say let's see it happen, but I really don't fancy wrestling zombies. Let's keep it to wrestlers.
Yeah, no, sure. Well, that brings us to the end of that feature. We do have one more feature to close the show, but like I say, we're going to talk about other stuff outside of RevPro as well, because again, you don't just wrestle at RevPro, you wrestle other places as well. Some place I wanted to talk to you about that seems to be somewhere you really enjoy wrestling and have a good time is SWW. Like, talk to me about your relationship with them, about like sort of like working with them again for a while now, and like the push they've given you and being able to like be sort of like a face of that promotion. Exactly, with the belt.
There it is. Yeah, no, for real. It's it's a real fun place to work. It's kind of a bit of a I guess sentimental value to it. I mean, I started out, my first set of training I did was in Gloucester with Pro Evolution Wrestling, which is still running out there, EVW. But that was kind of in that Gloucester area, which is where Southwest are based, sort of Gloucester, Cheltenham, that sort of area. And I worked with them in one of the first selection of shows, which was real cool. They're a real small promotion, and to be honest, I was very early on in my career. Didn't really have a clue what I was doing. I didn't really have any business being on their shows. They put the championship on me, which was the worst booking decision they could have possibly done, because I'm not the guy you want to put the title on. And one thing led to another, and that didn't last very long. And then I was out for a while, and about 5 years later, I got the call to be like, hey, come on in, we're doing this tournament, we'd love to bring you in. And the night before at RevPro, I sprained an ankle and was unable to work the next day as much as I wanted to. It was swollen up, I couldn't really put weight on it, so I had to drop out of the booking. So once again, that was missed out. And then fast forward a couple of years later, they brought me in for one shot to wrestle Chris Bronson at the Frog and Fiddle Cheltenham, over 18 show, main event. I don't think they thought much more of it than this should be a fun match. We went in there, and another guy that I feel like I've got really good chemistry with, and we just go in there and it works. And I think we had a real fun match that night with fans biting on everything that was happening. And I think that was kind of the match that made them take notice and say, maybe this is something we want to invest a little bit of something in. And fast forward 6 months down the line, and I'm beating Chris Bronson in Cheltenham Town Hall for this championship that I just proudly showed off, which means a lot because, yeah, they're not the biggest promotion in the UK. They're not on that same level as the RevPro and the Progress is, but what they're doing is good and it's important, and it's a chance for me to be the guy somewhere, to prove that I can hold that championship, that I can have those entertaining main events, that I can draw people into the next show, and that's a really important opportunity for me in my career to have that spot, and then hopefully be able to continue that in some of the other places, the slightly bigger places like the RevPros and beyond. So yeah, really enjoy my time there. I really enjoy working with Pete and all the team, and if anyone's not in touch with them, then keep an eye on Southwest Wrestling, because they're putting out some good stuff. I
was going to say, like you mentioned, I want to ask about that, because like you say, your first train was like not everything you would have wanted from it, and like again, is it one of those moments where sort of like you sort of like alluded to earlier, where like it was one of those moments where you're not going to turn it down, but it was maybe like a bit too much too soon, and you weren't ready for it in your career?
Yeah, for sure. I was about 2 years in. My first few years as well was wrestling. I could probably count on one or two hands how many matches I had. So it was, everyone's journey's different. Everyone's first few years are different. But I definitely didn't have the experience or the. I wasn't in the position to be in that position, if that makes sense. So yeah, it was like, say, you're not going to turn down these opportunities because this is what we do it for. But now I'm very much in that position where I feel like I can, lead the charge there and put on some entertaining matches, and be a champion that the fans invest in and want to see win and want to see slay the beast and the evil heels, whoever they put in front of me. And I really do want to prove that, that I can, lead the charge. It's an important opportunity for me.
Yeah, like you say, like when it's somewhere as well who the sort of like has that special like extra meaning for you, where again, like you say, the first fight run wasn't all you wanted. Is it a nice sort of like almost like a redemption arc sort of thing where you can come back all those years later and have a title run and have it be the right time for you, like where, and again, not just the right time for you, but the right time for them to also be like, yeah, we're ready for this now?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's definitely rewarding to be able to come back and be like, right, I might not have been ready when you first gave me this opportunity, but now I really am, and here's what I can do, and here's how I can hopefully improve things for you and for me in the same time. So yeah, really enjoying the work going on down there. Yeah,
and like you say, they've sort of like, again, like you said, they're a smaller promotion, but they've grown themselves over those years as well. Like, which must be nice to see as well. Like, again, you have that sort of like break from them and you go back, and they're on again, like you say, not like a RevPro or a Progress level, but like a bigger level than they were when you first held the belt over there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the show that I won the belt at was a brand new belt, I must say. We'll do some.
It's lovely. It is beautiful. It is a lovely belt.
Brand new belt that they presented me after winning, and I felt like for them and for me to be a part of that, it kind of felt like a beginning of a new era for them. Slightly new branding, beautiful new championship. They just capped off a massive show at the Cheltenham Town Hall, which is a huge, exciting venue that they, got a lot of people into for that show, and that's kind of like, I felt for them it was like this is the start of us taking that next step for us as a promotion, and it's cool to be a part of that, something that's growing and developing. It's kind of nice to attach yourself to that and help that process for them.
Yeah, I love that. So before we get into our closing feature, I just want to say, in that case, we asked at the beginning of the show about what your last year has been like. What about the next year? Obviously, you've got Copperbox coming up on the horizon, and we can see that, and that's great. But post Copperbox, what does the rest of 2024 have in store for JJ Gale? What does the rest of this year and maybe like into next year have for JJ Gale? Where would you want to be if we were having this chat this time next year, and I said to you again, has it been a good year for JJ Gale? What would constitute that for you? Not necessarily in terms of like winning belts or doing it, but like in terms of for you personally, what would sort of like be fulfilling for you in terms of in 12 months time you can be like, it's been a good year?
Yeah, I think it is a case of being presented with these opportunities to have big matches, big moments, tell important stories, and deliver on them. Get in there with more of the best in the world and hang and learn and really feel like I've achieved something. And I've had a great opportunity to do that this year with the likes of like I say, Zach and Josh and obviously Ishii coming up. So I want more of those opportunities. I'd love to show what I can do to some other promotions out there. There's places like OTT in Ireland that I think I see the stuff they're doing, and I want to be a part of that. That looks exciting. I'd love to get out to that fan base. I've never been out to Ireland to wrestle. Going abroad or going overseas is great. Currently out with SAJ a lot over in Italy. It's one of their tag team champions, so it's great to be out there. But other places, France, Belgium, these seem like great scenes. Germany, I just would like to get myself out there in front of many different fan bases, and hopefully just prove that I'm someone that you should be keeping your eye on and watching, and learn, develop. The respect of the boys in the back is something that's invaluable. Them appreciating you and your work and your abilities is something I think is really important. So just growth. It's all about growth for me. And being able to look back at the end of each year and be like, am I in a better position? Have I learned more? Do I feel more well-rounded and developed as a wrestler? And it's been the case every year at the moment, and I just want to keep doing that, accelerating that as much as possible.
I love that. And again, like, it's really interesting you said that. I just want to pick up on that because you mentioned, again, wrestling all these places in Europe as well. And that must be cool as well, again, for someone who's been on the scene a while. And again, like, just seeing the European scene grow to enough of a level where, again, like the British guys can go over to Europe quite regularly now. We've spoken to like loads of guys who are out in, like you say, Italy, France, Belgium, quite a lot, like Scandinavia as well. And it must be cool to be like seeing that wrestling is growing so much indie-wise in mainland Europe, whereas I think probably maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it really wasn't that big. You had, again, like you had your WXW and stuff, but other than that, there were no real like big places people could wrestle across mainland Europe. And now these places are big enough where they can afford to bring over British talent and like have you guys wrestle on their shows, and you guys get that spotlight as well.
Yeah, I think it speaks to wrestling as a general, and its its growing popularity, and independent wrestling, and especially British wrestling. It's kind of cool that British wrestlers are imports. You know what I mean? Like British wrestlers are enough of a draw and stars that if you bring them on your show elsewhere in Europe, people are excited and they'll come to that show because this person from the UK is on it. It doesn't necessarily have to be the big name from America or Japan. And I just think that speaks volumes to what the guys have been doing here for the last 5-10 years, and what guys like myself and others who are kind of that next crop of guys coming up wanting to lead the charge and keep on that legacy and keep building the scene. I think it's a great opportunity for us to do that.
And especially places like SAJ as well, you mentioned, like where it's typically just a little warmer as well, a little nicer, a little sunnier. Like it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I'll take a trip. I'll take a trip to sunny Italy and sink a few brewskis and have a good wrestle. I'm all in for it.
It's not a bad thing, is it, when you get that message, being like, oh, do you want to come out to Italy? Oh, no, what a shame. Like, if I need to. You're right. Well, that's brilliant. That is brilliant. And that brings us nicely into our closing feature of the show. Obviously, we had you dish some dirt on your locker room mates, but now we're going to talk about you. We're going to talk about JJ Gale, because this feature is called Anatomy of a Pro Wrestler. And it's essentially what makes you you. So again, I'm going to list you off some questions and you let me know what comes to mind. So the first one is, what is your favourite post-pinfall pig out?
Post-pinfall pig out is a great phrase. I'll start coining that. For me, my favourite post-pinfall pig out would have to be a Nando's. You can't beat a Nando's, right?
Classic, right?
Sunset burger maybe for a little bit of flavour. Maybe we're looking at butterfly chicken, chips, maybe some garlic bread. Medium sauce kind of guy, not too spicy, but come on, we can't be touching lemon and herbs. So. Yeah,
no, you got to have something a bit more, don't you? You have to have a little bit of a punch in there.
That's it, just a little bit.
No, nice. I like it. What about your side? That's the key question. What are the sides?
I'm looking at chips. Sometimes peri-salted. Sometimes just fancy some chips and dip it in the sauce is enough for me. You don't want to overdo it.
Yeah.
Like with garlic bread. Sometimes a bit of rice mash. You got to switch it up. The mac and cheese they do is a naughty treat sometimes as well.
I've never had the mac and cheese there.
It's nice. They did a dish once that was like a big mac and cheese, but also had like bits of like grilled chicken on as well, and it was like a big it's good.
That sounds pretty good. Yeah, I like that. I'm
hungry now.
I was going to say, people mentioned it. I've got to get rid of this question because whatever is answered, I'm always like, well, that's what I'm in the mood for now.
Yeah.
The next one, they're not all food based, but the next one is food based as well. It's the classic. What is your like death row last meal be?
That's a great question. I think I would say a roast dinner.
Yeah. What kind of meat?
Maybe like a three meat selection.
Nice. Yeah. Why pick? It's your last meal, right?
Exactly right. So I'm thinking a little bit of lamb. You can't beat a nice bit of lamb with
nice.
Maybe some beef, and then that third meat. I mean, you can't beat a bit of chicken, I was
going to say it's chicken or pork.
Gammon. That's what it's going to be.
Gammon's a nice call. Yeah.
Lots of gravy. Lots of roasties, get the Yorkshires on there, all the veg. Yeah, sign me up.
I like it. Yeah, it's a good shout. It's got to be like smothered in gravy though, right? Like, that's like, sometimes like go out and you get like a carvery or whatever, like, or you get like a roast at a pub and like they'll bring over like a tiny bit of gravy and you're like, what? That's nowhere near enough. Like, come on.
That and my other pet peeve for something like that is when you get a full English somewhere and you've got like a spoonful of beans. I'm like, come on. The baked beans make it all palatable.
Yeah. A little bit of bean, a little bit of tomato. It's like, no, you want loads. Give me all of it.
The more the merrier. We're bulking. We're always bulking.
That's when you know it's good, isn't it? When you go somewhere and they give you like the ramekin of beans and it's like full. You're like, okay, well, now I'm getting my money's worth.
Yeah. I'm with you.
The next one, we talked about music earlier on the Dish in the Dirt, but the next one is the song that gets you the most hyped.
Cheat answer, I guess, but Burned by Quintana, my theme song.
Yeah, that is a bit of a cheap, but I'll allow it because a lot of people have said their theme, and I get it.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's the song that you want to get you hyped up, I think that was a real game changer for me in my career as well. Just having that music was the first time I had some extra music where I heard it and I was like, right, let's go. It fires you up. It gives you that burst of adrenaline and energy to go out there and deliver that energy to the fans and into your work in the ring. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm sort of blanking. What did you have before that?
So me and Callum Newman had a tag team together.
Of course.
Which he then took over to New Japan, which was a pop, because I don't think either of us were a very big fan of that music, to be honest. And then he's out there wrestling for New Japan using it. I know it's changed now, but yeah, so it was that before.
Yeah, that's it. I couldn't remember.
And before that, the Contenders music, which everyone knows is a bop.
Yeah, it is a bop. It is a bop. But you need your own personal stuff, don't you? You need your own...
That's it. So I think I've hit the money with Quantanas Burns. They're really kind enough to give me the music, and I feel like the fans are getting into it as the week's gone as well. They're quite often singing it when I come out now, which is nice to kind of have that connection with the fans as well.
Yeah, I like it. So you were slagging off Taylor Swift earlier. So what is like JJ Gale's music taste? What do you have on in the carpool, like on road trips?
Pompey Rock. That's the first and only song coming on. There'll only be a select few people that might listen to this and understand. But
that's a very niche area of rock, isn't it? Yeah.
And if any of my fans from Southampton are listening to this, they're actually going to hate me for that. But it's for the pure banter of that song. But no, I'm into all sorts of music really. Indie rock, reggae, different dance music, drum and bass, jungle, this sort of stuff, hip hop.
But not Southampton rock. That's.
Pompey Rock is a song, all right, and it is it's a goated song in the car journeys. But once again, Southampton, my faithful. I'm here right now, Southampton. Please don't hate me for that. I hope I've just turned myself here.
I was going to say, are you allowed to cross the border? Crossing the border seems like, again, like I thought that
I put my foot in it.
I thought that wasn't allowed.
We'll swiftly move on. Next question.
The next one is the movie that you'd show the locker room. I struggle with favourites of anything because I just find it hard to narrow it down. Maybe it's easier by genre, but Hot Fuzz I think is just a classic. Yeah.
It's a classic movie that you can't go wrong. If I'm just like, I don't know what to put on, it's easy to put on. I'll be able to quote it for days.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I grew up in the West Country, so that kind of vibe just kind of...
Does it resonate? Does it resonate as someone who grew up in the West Country?
It does, honestly. There's a very select few amount of people that you will meet like that, but I've had a few mates that like grew up on the farms and stuff, and they are proud of all that, you know.
That is brilliant. I mean, again, like you say, it's one of those ones you can have on in the background, can't you? And you don't even need to pay full attention because you know exactly what's happening and when it's happening.
Yeah, it's class. The most quotable film out there, for sure.
Yeah, it is a great film. Yeah, I agree.
Also underrated, the Scooby-Doo movies. I'm telling you, they are underrated.
Yes, the Scooby-Doo movies are great.
They are way too much fun.
There are so many
comedies here. There's obviously great serious films, stuff like Shutter Island and and more serious moving films. But if you're just in the mood for a bit of fun,
sometimes all you want is a bit of shit comedy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. No.
So you want 12 rounds on the Marine, right? Yeah.
No, I like it. The next one's a bit of a throwback because it's your first job.
This is a fun one. So my first job was, like I said, I grew up in West Dorset. I lived there until I was 18 and then moved to Southampton to properly pursue wrestling, and this has kind of become like a second home now. But my first job was working in a skittle alley at the back of a pub.
Nice.
In my hometown of Bridport in Dorset. I'd turn up, I'd get a free Pepsi or a J2O or something. I'd go and stand at the bottom of this long alley. So for anyone who doesn't know what alley skittles are, which I'm sure you do, it's kind of like tenpin bowling, but it's a wooden floor, it's a wooden ball, there's these wooden skittles at the bottom, and my job was a sticker upper, that's what they call it. So I went sticking up, that's what they call it, and you stand like a little platform to the side of the alley at the bottom, and all these drunk blokes come and they will launch these balls really fast down. You're just a skinny teenager trying not to get hit by the skittles flying, and then you've got a short amount of time to put them all back up for the next person. So it keeps you active. I'd be down there with a couple of AirPods in, just listening to music or some wrestling podcast or something, hoping to do it quickly and not piss off the drunk blokes. But it's a fun first job.
Would they take it that seriously? Would it be like you're not getting them up quick enough? They'll say something.
Sometimes, yeah. Or sometimes you'd like you wouldn't you not be paying attention and maybe put one extra up and fucking all this stuff. So. But it was a fun first job.
I tell you what,
can't go wrong.
It's also a little bit of a thankless job as well because again, it's really weird because maybe it is a West Country thing because like a couple of years ago I was on like a family holiday in the West Country and we were all in this like Airbnb and they had a skittle alley as well. And I before that though, I hadn't played Skittles in probably 15 years, and I was I didn't even know these still existed. But
yeah, but, I mean, my older brother did it, my dad did it. It was just it's a classic first job in the town that I grew up in, so I didn't really think twice of it until I came elsewhere, or my partner's from Portugal, and I told her about it, and she's like, "It's what? What is this thing?" So
why wouldn't you just do bowling? What are you on about?
Yeah.
No, but like I say, it is a thankless job as well, because I remember doing that, and the worst part was having to walk down to the back of the alley and put all your pins back up again afterwards.
Yeah.
And they're heavy as well. They're heavier than I expected them to be.
And they hurt. I'm telling you. Yeah. Times they give you a little corner in the side of the alley, and you kind of stand back as much as you can. But if they get hit with power, it can come off and smack you in the shins, and you're walking out of worse injuries than you can get from a match sometimes.
Yeah. I remember picking them up. I was like, I was not expecting the weight of it.
Yeah.
The next one's the only time we really get a little deep here on the podcast, because it's your greatest fear.
Ooh. That is a really good one, and something I don't know the immediate answer to, which is interesting, because that's something you should probably consider, right?
I don't know, I think it's one of those things that you try not to think about, isn't it? Fears generally is something I think we all push to the back of our minds, so I'm
yeah, no, I think you're right. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is, it might be quite a deep answer, but I guess leaving this earth and not having fulfilled, I don't know, your purpose, or having left some kind of a legacy, whether that be work through pro wrestling or the impact you had on other people's lives, and then the relationships you have. But yeah, I'd like to, whenever it's my time to pass on, for people to remember me for whatever it is, but for something positive, and that's the first thing that comes to mind.
No, I get that. I think that's important as well. I think we've had a few people say that as well. Because again, I think it's a mind-boggling concept to even think about the fact that there will be a day when no one knows who you are, and that's weird.
Yeah. So you can somehow, and I think especially guys like us that get into wrestling, part of what drew us into this was watching some of the greats and the Hall of Famers, and you're like, oh, I want that. I want to be remembered as having these epic matches, and even to the level we are now with the pro wrestling we do on an independent level, it's real cool and real awesome to hear fans be coming to one of your shows or coming to watch you or this roster of guys. Is something that's just something I look forward to, and it's an escape for me, and it's a really positive part of my life, and that's kind of cool that we're just doing what we love and grew up wanting to do, and we're able to impact other people's lives positively. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I love it. There's only a couple more. The next one is your favourite place in the world.
In the middle of that professional wrestling ring, and that is why I am, the heart and soul. There it is.
Love that. I mean, that is the perfect. No one is at there. That's mad, actually. Now you think about it. No, I don't think anyone that we've asked so far has said the wrestling ring, which is wild. Actually, now that I think
my heart and soul is in this game, and it's in that ring. So where else would I choose?
I love it. And the final one then is your dream holiday destination.
Just come back from Spain a couple of days ago, and that was beautifully sunny, and I was not there long enough. It all went too quickly. But my dream destination, I think it would be somewhere hot and sunny.
Yeah, that your sort of holiday
place. Somewhere like Hawaii or the Maldives, or somewhere just that's so beautiful, and a nice island or something sounds real nice to me.
What do you do? Are you a chill out holiday, or are you an adventurer?
So a bit of both. I mean, this holiday I've just been on was a real kind of let's just relax for 5 days. But I also, depending where you go, if you're going somewhere and you want to explore, I want to do stuff. I try and relax, but then I'm just I want to get up and do something, even if it's at the beach. I'll try and sunbathe for 20 minutes, and right, I'm bored. I want to go swim and I don't know, do something, eat some ice cream, drink some beer. I don't know, but a bit of both.
Yeah, I get that.
I like to explore.
Yeah. I think in the head, the relaxing on the beach all day is such a nice idea, doesn't it? But then you get there and you're like you say, half an hour, you're like, okay, I've done this now. What's next?
Yeah, exactly.
That's brilliant. Well, that brings an end to that feature, nearly to the end of the podcast. But JJ Gale, I have one more question left for you. And it's not a question that's been left by me, because we have a tradition here on the podcast where our last guest leaves a question for our next guest without any knowledge of who they're going to be leaving it for.
That's great.
So, the question you've been left is, this is quite an interesting one. This is quite a nice one, because I feel like it's something that everyone will have at some point. So the question you've been left is, actually you've been left, so I'm spoiling it here because you're not meant to know who left it, but it was 2 people we had on the podcast, so they left you a question each.
Okay, cool.
So I'm going to ask you both. Just out of fairness. The first one is what is this is a tougher one of the two. What is the lost piece of media you most want to see? And I think
like my personal media. Or
no, just anywhere. Like I think the way they described it was like either something you've heard about like in rumors but never seen, or like that thing you remember from like maybe from like childhood or something that like you remember watching but now can no longer find, and you're like, I'm sure I've seen this, but.
That's a very good question. I feel like I haven't got a fun answer off the top of my head.
It's a tough one. I would be surprised if you had one off the top of your head.
I don't know. Maybe like a real general boring answer would be just something historical, right? Like maybe like early film of something. I don't know what. There's not anything in my head that I'm like this moment, but I'm really fascinated by history and like looking back at times gone by and how that might have been, and just kind of that whole thing. So I'm going to just say something very historical that would give me an insight into that time.
Nice. That's more interesting than mine though. I mean, like when they described it, they asked me for mine. Like I said to them that mine was, in my head I remember playing this game as a kid where like it was Crash Bandicoot, but it was like this series of mini games where you were doing all these Crash Bandicoot mini games with like stuff, and like, but I can't remember for the life of me what it's called or where to find it or how to find it. And
Crash Bandicoot Wii Sports.
God, if it was that would be great. I tell you what, that's the game they should release. You imagine Wii Sports with Crash Bandicoot, it would be brilliant. But like, yeah, so I can't remember I can't even remember. I remember like one little memory where like they're pushing each other off this like iceberg or something, and that's the objective, is to push them off this. But that's all I remember from it. But I remember sitting there playing it as a kid, loving it. And now I remember nothing about it, and I'm just like, I want to find this game. Like in my head, I've convinced myself that I made it up. Maybe I dreamt it because I can't find it anywhere.
Mandela effect.
Exactly. So now I'm not sure. So now I need to find it because I'm like, shit. Well, the second question you've been left is actually, it's weirdly enough, is about video games as well. But it's for you personally. It's what is the video game that you have the most sentimental attachment to?
Okay, so full transparency, I'm not a video game guy.
Okay.
I'm going to let down a lot of people there, I know, because I know there's a lot of video game buffs out there. I'm not really a big video game guy. I never was any good at them, to be honest. And I was like, fuck this, I'm not very good, I'm going to leave it. I was usually out growing up out in the garden, just jumping on a trampoline or jumping through trees.
I think that's a better way, yeah. That's a nicer way, I think, yeah.
Yeah. But the one I have most sentimental attachment to, I spent a lot of time on SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 on the PS2.
Yes.
Because if I was going to play any game, it was going to be a wrestling game. And I wasn't even that interested in the wrestling. I was into like creating gimmicks and stuff on the Create Your Own Superstar.
Nice.
Or like doing the like My GM mode and whatever. Or I'd like, this was before like mods and stuff was a thing, I guess. So I'd like, I vividly remember the Nexus debuting and then like going on and creating each member of the Nexus in the Create Your Own Superstar. So that's probably the one. But also, you say Crash Bandicoot, that's probably the one I've got like an earliest memory to. And it wasn't even of me necessarily playing, but I remember very early memory growing up and next to my brother playing one of the Crash Bandicoot games on the PS1 and just sitting there watching him, wanted him to complete it. And I had no interest in playing, but I was so invested in watching him try and complete the game. So probably SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 with the runner-up being Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah, I think
version of the game.
Both good choices. But I think, yeah, like you say, the SmackDown vs. Raw ones, like again, like because it was like before proper DLC and like mods and stuff, is like it was just great giving like you build like this hench wrestler and then you give him like one of the women's entrances so he does like a ridiculous dance and you're like, oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. You're proud of yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, I bet no one has tried this before.
Or you're just making your own backyard wrestling gimmicks that you have in the trampoline with your mates or whatever.
Was a great game. Those were good days. I like it. Well, you of course will get to leave your own question for our next guest, but I'll get that from you after we finish recording. JJ Gale, thank you so much for coming on the Grapple Theory podcast. It's been a pleasure having you here. I hope you've enjoyed it.
It's been great. It's been nice to chat to you and chat all things wrestling and some other funny things I didn't think we'd chat about. But
we like to mix it up a bit. I like to give you a little bit to think about that, like maybe you weren't expecting.
Keeps me on my toes. I appreciate it.
It's important in wrestling, right? You've got to be on your toes. You've got to be on your toes, ready for anything.
Exactly.
That's what we're doing here. Providing a service. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time, and congratulations on everything you've had going on. Best of luck, of course, for the next couple of months for Copperbox against Ishii. I'm sure you're going to absolutely smash it. Can't wait to see you in that match. But for anyone watching this, we always give our guest the final word. So for anyone watching who hasn't checked JJ Gale out yet for some unknown reason, or like wants to check you out and you're on a show near them, or they see you on social media, or they want to watch one of your matches on YouTube or something, if someone comes to see JJ Gale, why is JJ Gale going to steal the show?
Because I'm the heart and soul. I am heart and soul. That's it's not just a nickname. It's not just a gimmick. Like, I put my heart and soul into professional wrestling, and I really leave everything out there every time. As soon as I step through that curtain, it's like a transformation from JJ, the guy who's just chatting to you now, to heart and soul JJ Gale, and I come alive with the energy of the people, and there's no other option but to give everything I have and put on a show and entertain people and leave everything I have in the ring. So I'm going to do everything to entertain you, and that is why you don't want to miss your chance to see JJ Gale in action.